Hello, I'm Juliet Mann. Welcome to the Agenda podcast, CGTN Europe's one-stop shop for smart, in-depth discussion on the issues that really matter in the world today. And in this episode, we're tackling one of the biggest challenges facing the planet, sustainability. For decades, scientists have warned that unless we dramatically reduce our carbon footprint, we're going to destroy the planet. Businesses appear to be listening, but how can we produce everything we need without harming the environment? Yara International is one of the world's largest fertilizer companies, and it knows that innovation is essential if it's to help feed the planet in a sustainable way. CEO Svein Tore Holsether told me just how he plans to go about that.
Well, we're in the agriculture sector, and when we see both the impact now on food security, on the climate, we see that this is something that no one can do alone, whether it's a company, a government, or an organization. It's about collaboration across the value chain and really lifting this together. Agriculture, or the whole food system, represents 30% of greenhouse gas emissions. So we're not going to be able to reach the Paris Agreement unless we solve agriculture. So this is really a key topic to discuss.
And it is a topic that's been pushed up the international agenda, perhaps because there's just so much in the news, extreme weather events, we've had droughts, we've had floods, we've got the energy crisis, supply chain issues, all of that coming together at the same time. But are we at a point now really where businesses and governments are taking this seriously enough?
Well, it is at the top of the agenda for all the wrong reasons. After decades now of reducing hunger, the number of people that are facing acute hunger has doubled since 2019. There's a human being dying every 4 seconds from hunger, and we're in 2023. This is it's tragic. It's not necessary. It is possible to solve this. So it's on the top of the agenda for all the wrong reasons. But I think the awareness that we have now should trigger wide actions in order to start to improve the food system, both from a climate perspective, but also from a hunger perspective.
So what innovations, what new technology have you been making use of that are helping, from the Yara point of view, that you could maybe roll out more broadly?
Well, it starts with our product. We're selling premium advanced fertilizer that gives better crop yields, better quality food, lowers the climate footprint of the farmers, and we've reduced our own carbon footprint by 50% since 2005. And now with the use of technology, digital tools, by the use of smartphones, now you could put competence and knowledge in the hand of the farmers that just a few years ago would only be available to large-scale farmers. I believe there's like 600 million farmers in the world, more than 200 million in China. When you can start to communicate that kind of knowledge widespread, it's amazing what can be done, and using satellite imagery, precision use of input to maximize the yields. We're really at an exciting time right now.
It is exciting, but it does sound very expensive, and you're talking about farmers in remote communities, in maybe disadvantaged parts of the world. They're not all that digitally savvy, and that's a big thing. I know at Davos they've got plans to help 1 billion people with their digital lot. But how do you address that? It's a huge challenge.
Yeah, but it is changing now, and it's changing rapidly. So there are still a lot of farmers that don't have access to smartphones, but most have access to a mobile phone, or in a community where they have access to that, and we can use that to drive technology. And we see the impact. And I was in Kenya just a couple of months ago, and when I see the impact that we can have on helping with the right type of fertilizer, because you need to add the nutrition that the soil needs. It's about focus on soil health. When you have a healthy soil, you get a healthy crop. And you see, it's not incremental increases. You're talking about doubling in the first season. And I've seen examples of 5-6 times as high yields as well. And then it's about creating these businesses. Farmers are business people. They want to be business people. So we need to have incentives. And what I see is that once we get the technology out there and the competence and the knowledge, this isn't expensive. It has an income side as well, and so it is a profitable proposal for the farmers.
What do you think there needs to change in the global food supply system to really become more sustainable?
Well, I think we're at a stage now where individual action is not enough. We need to see whole value chain from input provider to farmer, to distributors, to retailers, and all the way to consumers. If you think the whole value chain, the step isn't that large, but it requires collaboration and it requires trust, and that's something we're unfortunately in short supply of. So we need to create that transparency, to create the trust in the system. And what I've seen when we get this done throughout the full value chain, has a huge impact and not that big a cost either. And indeed, the cost of inaction is much greater than the cost of action right now. And we see this across so many countries as well. And you see in our Chinese business, we just opened up our new R&D center and digital center in Shanghai now. The awareness now that China is also driving in terms of soil health as well and carbon sequestration. A lot is happening here now. It's about technology, it's about cooperation, it's about thinking full value chains.
So you've mentioned Kenya, you've mentioned China. Where's your core focus going to be in the short to medium term?
Well, we're a global company where our products go to.
But there'll be some markets that are more exciting and more lucrative than others.
Well, for a company that sells to 160 countries, we built our whole presence. We started out in Norway 118 years ago, and we've been focused on exports the whole time. But whether it's in Europe, South America, North America, Asia now, we've established a presence in India as well. And for China, we've been there. We sent our first product to China 110 years ago. So imagine that. We are putting a lot of resources, and it's an important market for us where we're selling advanced fertilizers that really have a very significant impact, both on crop yields, but also nutritional content, the climate footprint as well. So we are adding and still continuing to invest in China.
I think we're going to need 60% more food, aren't we, by 2050, because the population is growing so fast, and we've hit 8 billion towards the end of last year. You've mentioned you're in all of these countries. You're talking at grassroots level. But what are you doing specifically to help feed the future?
Yeah, we need 60% more food. And not only is that doable, we can even do that on less land than what we're doing right now by becoming more productive, releasing land, turning it back into nature. For me, the solution is in the soil, focusing on soil health, because if you have the right composition in the soil with increasing soil organic matter, if you have the right nutrients, then you have also a healthy crop. And by doing that, you add to biodiversity, and you get more nutritious food as well, because our bodies absorb these nutrients as well. We are a product of the food that we eat as well. So this is possible, but then we need to use technology, and we need to direct incentives to support farmers, not to put additional burdens on farmers. And if you get that right, I think that's an important part of doing this at scale and doing it quickly.
It's interesting you talk about that support for farmers, because there will be different expectations and demands from your different markets. So talk to me about that Chinese market in particular.
Well, in China, we see a lot is happening right now in terms of precision farming, focus on the nutritional content in the food as well, increasing productivity. And a lot of the farming in China is done by smallholder farmers. I believe 210 million smallholder farmers in China. So that focus, helping them to become more productive. But here, I think with our agronomic competence, we have 1,000 agronomists in Yara. So if we can translate all that knowledge into help for the farmers that works in their plots, I think that's something that can really make a difference, and something that we go to work for every day to help the farmers, being a farmer-centric company, and also being a voice of farmers in terms of both development of technology and solutions, but also to create incentives, whether that is in China or globally.
We're in Davos at the World Economic Forum. It's a very busy place. Everyone's got places to be and people to see. But if you had one message to give to world leaders here, what would it be?
Well, it's the message on climate. We're the first generation that can really feel and see the impact of climate change. And we are the last generation where only will stays in the way of doing something about it. So it's about accelerating this. We've been through some really big challenges globally right now where we haven't been prepared enough as a world. Now for the climate crisis, and we see it from the UN Secretary General as well, when he talks about code red for humanity, we need to really step up our efforts, and no one can do this alone. The longer we wait, the bigger the problem. So let's turn all the talk and the intentions now into very clear actions, and to do that at scale.
Lots of reports are coming out at Davos. Organisations use that as an opportunity. And I'm just thinking that Oxfam have come out with their inequality report. And they've said there should be a windfall tax on rich people. There should be a windfall tax on energy companies. What's your take on that?
Well, I haven't been able to read the whole report in detail. I saw the headlines.
The concept.
But the concept that the wealthier should pay more, I support that. We see now how much of the wealth creation in the last 2 years have gone to the 1% richest, and we see it so clearly in our space, in food, that is moving in the wrong direction. There are more people facing hunger now than 2 years ago. So there is something wrong with the distribution of the wealth, and that needs to be dealt with. How we do that, I think we should debate that. We're doing a lot from our side in the business. We see that as part of our responsibility. We have donated $50 million now to smallholder farmers in Africa, also working with the World Food Programme. Those $50 million, when we see the impact of fertilizer in crop yields and how that helps these farmers to produce more food, and I've been discussing this with David Beasley at the World Food Programme as well. If they were to come in and do this, it would have been costing 6 times as much. And they need funding as well. So it's about collaboration, but helping farmers to become more productive, to turn it into businesses so that they are sustainable businesses. And I see it firsthand what happens when farmers get more money. Well, they send their kids to school, they buy houses, they invest in their farming. So we all have a responsibility, whether it's a business or a private individual. And if it continues like this right now, where the wealthiest take a too large share of the wealth creation, it will be a start of much more volatility in the world, and we see examples of that already.
And just lastly, on this notion for a windfall tax on energy companies.
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the energy companies, but I can speak on behalf of our own company. And when we have made larger profits right now as a result of higher fertilizer prices, higher food prices, we also see it as a responsibility that we do contribute. Part of that we're doing through the work directly with farmers, making tools available on digital farmings so that we can have a more efficient use of the product, but also straight donations of money into vulnerable communities to help the ones that are most at risk.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
We've heard about how crop production is becoming more sustainable, but what about further down the food chain? What should we be doing with our leftover potato peel, kitchen waste and sludge? Well, Stéphane Vernède is co-founder of Enwise, a firm which transforms all that into renewable, clean and affordable energy. Stéphane, thanks ever so much for joining us on the agenda. First of all, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So at Enwise, we do anaerobic digesters that we take wastes from organic waste, especially in factories, and we turn them directly into energy and fertilizer. The process we use is anaerobic digestion. It's a natural decomposition without the absence of oxygen that will produce a gas, biogas, which is an energetic gas, a mixture between methane and CO2.
How is this technology being used, and what would you say are the real benefits?
So from the engineering point of view, we take the waste and turn it into a paste. This is what we call the dry digestion, because it's paste-like. And this allows to be much much denser and much more efficient than traditional wet process. To give you an example of what we do, we work with a world leader potato chips manufacturer, and we take the sludge from their wastewater treatment, so everything that comes out, all the solids that come out of the wastewater treatment, and all the peelings from potatoes, and then we digest it and turn them into this biogas and produce around 20% of the energy of the factory. So that's a net reduction of 20% of the energy usage from the factory, which is totally zero carbon.
So you're helping your customers hit their zero carbon targets, but do you think enough is being done to incentivize others to follow suit and reduce their environmental footprints?
Our current customers are all top leading brands, and they are innovators and they are ready to take risk to become champion in zero carbon industry, because they know that being sustainable and zero carbon is essential for them to build and reinforce their brand, a strong brand, and for the future, for the value of their company in the long term. And then other company which may not have been such innovator or willing to take risk at that stage will benefit from their experience and for the maturing of the technologies.
It seems like a no-brainer. So why isn't everyone doing it? So we offer very attractive payback to our customer, around 20%, which is better than most of other things you can get in that. But the technology and still take time to develop and grow. I think the example is like for solar. Solar used to be much more expensive than traditional energy, but now we have been through a green transition and solar is much cheaper. And the same thing is happening in anaerobic digestion. And as the number of reference grows and people think of the technology as less risky or they're more used to it, and it will spread out. And I wonder if where you are is important, because you founded the company in 2012 and you decided to set up shop in Shanghai. Why is that important?
So my wife and co-founder is Chinese, and she wanted to have her family and our family growing in China. So basically it was a personal decision more rather than a business decision. But it happened to be a very good choice because right now we are in an environment in China with a huge push and a huge will for sustainability. And this combined with a very mature and complete supply chain makes that it's an excellent position to develop green technology.
China says it wants to become carbon neutral by 2060. Do you think that's realistic? Are they on target to hit that goal?
In China, I've demonstrated his way to produce incredible change in very short term and to be very focused on this kind of topic. I mean, just in environmental protection, those last 12 years, what's happened is really impressive. And I think this will follow. And So there is this supply chain, the industrial background is here, the political will is here. People are synchronized. I think we all know it's tough, and it won't be in a day. It will be maybe like some bumps in the road, but I think that the direction is good, and the resources are there.
You've recently started a project with the China State Grid. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, that's a really interesting project. So the big picture is to couple the gas network, natural gas network, with the electricity grid. So the idea is from biogas, you can transform it into pure natural gas. So biogas is methane plus carbon dioxide, and natural gas is only methane. So you can use electricity to produce hydrogen and combine it so that the CO2 turns into methane and you get pure natural gas. And then you can inject this natural gas on the gas grid and leverage the storage and transport capacity of the gas grid. And then you can take the gas and use fuel cell to produce back electricity. So the idea is in zone where you have abundant source of clean electricity, they say abundant wind or solar resource, but you may not have consumption. You can use and leverage the natural gas network to store electricity and then recover electricity in zones where you don't have this production. So we participate in the demonstration pilot in Lishui of this unit, and we have provided the anaerobic digestion part of the project.
What advice would you give to any aspiring entrepreneurs who want to start something like Enwise?
We learn by walking. So the very first step and single step is just do it. And there will be a lot of problems that you didn't expect, but also a lot of opportunities that you didn't see forward. So yeah, I think really the thing is, if you really want to do something, do it, and things will just open up as you walk.
So let's talk a little bit more about those opportunities. What's next for Enwise? Do you have any more exciting projects planned?
Yeah, we have a lot on our plate. So we mostly work with the top brand in food industry, and now we are deploying the solution in different factories in China, and then extending on the zone, so in Southeast Asia and all Asia.
And what's the time frame on that? So when do you hope to be up and running in those other regions?
China is already ongoing, and we're spreading and starting out of China next year.
So this is clearly what you eat, sleep and breathe. You're very passionate about the business and about the goals. But do you think everyone else, the world, is taking the transition to sustainable energy seriously enough? I mean, what more would you like to see being done? Meetings like the upcoming COP28 in Dubai, for example.
Yeah, I think basically we can divide this problem into three main groups or actors. One is people, the general public. Second is the government. And the third is the companies, public or private. So for the people, I think that the main role is the main power they have, that they can vote with their money. They can decide to purchase or to favor some product or companies that have a sustainable way. And this is extremely powerful because that will align all the interests of the companies. For the companies, I think there are some of the main actor in this transition, as they have to promote the technology, change the way they think, the way they produce, and develop this technology. And well, there is one of the incentives will be, of course, the regulation from the government, and the second incentive is the fact that people will vote for them or not by buying their products. And for the government, I think their main role is about giving legal and a normative framework that will push forward in the direction of a transition to zero carbon. So what would I expect for COP? I think mostly just produce policy and norms that push the industry in the right direction. Everything else will be done by the people and the companies.
Stéphane Vernède, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Agenda podcast. Next week, as China prepares for its annual Two Sessions gathering, we'll speak to the presidents of Costa Rica and East Timor about their hopes for future relations with Beijing. And remember, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find more Agenda content on CGTN Europe's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube channels. Until next time, goodbye.
The most interesting questions.
Are there other living beings beyond Earth?
Will man or machine be in charge?
Great question.
Always have more than one answer.
Well, hold on, let me just draw up a list.
And always come from more than one person.
That's where the credibility lies.
The concept of having a machinery which is alive and evolving didn't wait for us.
The end of inequality of incomes and wealth around the world, can you imagine how difficult that is at the moment to achieve?
Every episode, Stephen Cole, Murray Beveridge, and some of the brightest minds out there shed light on the answers to some of the most intriguing questions.
There are two ways of looking at this.
Machines can't really discriminate between civilian and military targets.
The Answers Project.
Maybe we need to just look at this in a bit more detail.
Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
The Answers Project, a new podcast from CGTN Europe.